next story, again, this is where I've been like, what is going on with the rails? Everybody's talking about these guys striking and how badly they're getting screwed. And let's get into like what the hell's going on here. So first thing is, I'm not always a huge fan of WSWS lately. However, when it comes to rank and file employees and what's happening from the perspective of how management is screwing people over, they usually have it pretty well. So what they're doing here, in Tom Hall, I give him a lot of credit. He actually gave the microphone to the workers. It's kind of like what we did this week at INN, and we let them talk. So they're furious after last week's White House broker deal. What are they saying? Well, let's start. All right. It's bad enough that Congress wanted to take away our ability to strike, but now our own unions did the same thing. Here's a machinist. I'm a machinist with 8 years of service. We're sick of our upper parts of the union agreeing to anything without any kind of vote. 90% of our shops craft our FMLA in order to take leave without being reprimanded. We shouldn't have to go to these extremes. 100%. West Virginia, and this goes on. I've got stories upon stories. You can't even imagine. It's bad enough that Congress wanted to take away our ability to strike, but now our own unions did the same thing. All they did was give the companies and government more time to prepare against a strike by kicking the can down the road a bit. An old saying keeps ringing in my head: strike while the iron is hot. By delaying it with promises of a TA, then people will say it's going to be weeks before we can view and vote on it. Our union's giving them time to prepare for the next rounds of war. The companies don't care one bit about their workers, so we should use what power we have to force the issues we're facing upon them rather than idly sit back and wait. Yeah. Here's an Indiana railroader. Quote, the railroad has received record profits on the backs of the hardworking T&E people. Give us a better schedule. Give us time off to take care of our declining health and stop raising our insurance. I also feel the union dues are going to increase just as soon as the contract is signed. The railroad owns us. Our time is no longer our own. I knew that going into this job 19 years ago, but I thought it was going to be worth it. This job's only gotten worse as every year passes. The pay is no longer worth all the bullshit you have to put up with. Tara, welcome. Tara Reed's in the house. Sister Tara, I love you. This whole fake contract settlement doesn't surprise me one bit. Joe Biden and his constituents haven't told the truth about anything as far as I'm concerned. Hell, they still deny that inflation's high. Our unions openly supported this president during the election, so none of this smoke and mirrors surprises me. In order to avoid a strike just before the election, corruption and corporate greed are running rampant in this country, all on the backs of the working people. Enough is enough. Compensate us. I mean, these are the words of the workers themselves. Here's an Oregon railroad. And again, all these people are spoke anonymously because they don't want to be retaliated against. The union sold us out. The government sold us out to fill their own pockets. I hope Biden, Warren, and Sanders were all very comfortable on their knees under that CEO's desk. Yikes. We've got a local union rep in Oklahoma sent the following statement. I work on call 24/7. with no assigned or guaranteed days off. This is what's remarkable, and this is the truth. There is an availability policy the railroad imposed that we didn't agree to in any way. They intentionally do not specify what the limits are on missing work. They use the terms frequent, excessive, and pattern of days, yet under questioning, the company witness, a manager, refuses to answer how many days are considered frequent or excessive and what a pattern is. There is intentionally no line in the sand. This means they can charge anyone for missing any days. This is railroad abuse. This is how they scare us, by firing one person for missing work and making an example out of him. And we heard the same stuff when we were talking to the Amazon workers on Thursday. Me and Colin. Go back and check out that stream if you can. Quote, as for this tentative national contract, of which there is no copy to see, it is garbage. We did not want what our union leaders settled for. My terminal and my local are overwhelmingly against it. We've lost much more than 24% in pay over the years, and we certainly should be able to strike without politicians getting in our way. The RLA has been manipulated against us. RLA! Not that RLA, but Radical Leftist Agenda is in the chat. Love you, Nikki. I don't think he's talking about you. It needs to be spread far and wide that we far outnumber them and that we have the power in our numbers. Corporate greed has all but wiped out the middle class, and our union leadership has helped them. Washington's even worse, and when you consider that the very party that's supposed to stand with labor only pretends to help us because they want our money, then it seems hopeless. So, let's shut the railroads down for a time, and they'll be brought to their knees. We need another 1877 strike. We need a revolution. And not of the Carnation variety. So
we need a revolution. Looks like y'all ready for a revolution.
We need a revolution. A union insider explains how bureaucrats' raises are at stake in the contract, right? So WSWS also received the following anonymous tip from someone who attended the Brotherhood of Railway Signalmen convention earlier this year. I, along with over 100 other signal workers, was at the Brotherhood Signal Convention in June of 2022. Our national guys, the Grand Lodge, pushed through a hotly contested amendment to the BRS Constitution, which was billed as a pay rate structure change. It was basically a huge raise for everyone in the national office, and the movement raised nearly half the delegates. It was amended several times and finally passed. For years, their raises have been directly tied to general wage increases that they secured for the majority of their members nationally. If they got us a 10% raise, then they get a 10% raise. That hasn't changed, but in addition to this general wage increase, the GWI increase, this new restructuring of the pay system will bump all the Grand Lodge guys up substantially more in addition to the GWIs. They get 2 raises this time. Of
course.
Wonder why that is. However, due to a technicality in the rush job that was done on one of the amendments to the BRS Constitution at the last second, we discovered a big problem just recently. Their secondary raise will not take effect unless and until the membership ratifies the current TA, which is the 2019 bargaining round. The key word is ratify. If the membership votes down the TA and Congress imposes an agreement, then our national leaders don't get the double pay raises. Further reason for them to vote down the TA. So, this is why they are pushing the members to vote for the TA and why they will not strike. It has to be ratified or they don't get their extra money.
Yep.
The members need to know this, but we can't put anything out because they'll blackball us due to a no circular provision in our Constitution. Help.
So this is the Cliff Notes. It's pretty much like what the union leaders are going to make far more money off this deal than the actual workers. Right. And that's why they're pushing it.
They're getting a bonus. Basically, they're getting a bonus by getting this thing signed. They're all getting raises to their salary on top of the same percentage wage increase for their union leader
the
salary.
Workers, right. Yeah. Gotcha.
And then on top of that, wow. Now, I don't know how long it's been since those guys have received, raises for their union leadership positions. Now, also, we all have bad backs, necks, elbows, because we're doing all the work of 2 or more men. Because railroaders also continue to send in descriptions of terrible working conditions. Again,
of course they do.
Very similar to Amazon. An Ohio railroader says attendance policies put in place by these carriers have got us in balls and chains nowadays. Okay, and the union fails to do anything about it. We get penalized for using Family Medical Leave Act time. Some get fired for so-called abuse. Railroaders like myself gets $20 for meals up to 24 hours away from our home terminal. The rest is straight out of our pockets.
Yeah.
$20 for meals for a day? What are they eating? Okay, this is what really needs to change, along with the strict attendance policies that are being shoved down our throats and get worse every year. Brutal. A Northern Indiana railroader. Working conditions are tough. We have no manpower. We're expected to do the same or more work with less guys. When I started in 2014, we had 14 guys for 130 miles of track. Now we have 7 who were expected to do the same amount of work, and 2 of those guys are track inspectors, so that leaves 5 for actual work. 5 people, 130 miles of track. Do you feel safe on the rails? I wouldn't. Our tools are outdated. Management's so incompetent they couldn't plan a kid's birthday. We work long hours in the elements, and because of all this, our health pays for it. Again, bad backs, necks, knees, elbows, because we're all doing the work of 2 or more. Now, we're not soft down here by any means, but pay us what we're worth. This contract that's stuck in the 1970s needs an overhaul. 3 weeks vacation on your 8-year with no sick days is ridiculous. No sick days. McDonald's employees get more than that. Again, not to knock employees. The airline pilots union got roughly an 80% raise in their contract. But I'll stop going on. It's time to strike. Here's a signalman. Union Pacific. Doing the job 15 years. Watching this company force employees to quit with precision scheduled railroading and by only opening jobs where they knew they'd have to move themselves and their families. Strategy to make people quit. All during COVID at the peak of their record cars being moved. Record profits, and we're going to talk about that too. That's next.
I'm sure that affects supply chain too.
Well, of course.
On top of all that.
Sure, of course. At the same time, they restructured the hotel list we had to stay at with hotels that were not at par to stay at. For example, one area, there were 3 hotels at the corporate lodging list before the restructure: Comfort Inn, Days Inn, and Super 8. That's not exactly luxury stuff, right? We were told we couldn't stay there because only managers or directors are now able to stay there. The hotel was only charging $70 a night. The others are $20. Mind you, COVID was just starting to go through the U.S. like wildfire. I felt unsafe staying at the other hotels. I asked the manager, please don't make us stay here. Told me it was policy. Who approves the list? He does. And it was all about saving money. This has been awful the last 5 years, and
That's bullshit.
Going to get worse. Bro.
Like, what? It's policy. Who makes the policy? Well, me, but look, don't worry about it.
Well, look, man,
like,
it's him, except that he has a boss. Look, you know who owns the railroads? Warren Buffett owns the railroads.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Berkshire Hathaway.
Well, Warren Buffett. You mispronounced it.
He owns Burlington Northern Santa Fe. He owns CSX. He owns a lot. All these major rail carriers are consolidated and now owned by Berkshire Hathaway, which is controlled and owned by Warren Buffett. Here, I'm a member of the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way.
Railroad barons are gonna be fucking terrible. Who would have thunk?
Right.
These
actions by the railroads have got us to the breaking point. I see all these articles about our wages getting increased, etc., but I've yet to see anyone talk about the taxes we have taken out of our checks after our federal, state, Medicare, union dues, medical insurance. We end up with 45% of our check. So yeah, the wages are so great, right? We try to make the rails safe so there are no bad derailments in these towns and cities. But when it comes time to do it, they say, nah, we're going to delay it another month, week, year. There's spots out there where we're surprised we haven't seen big pileups. But yet again, moving that freight is more important. I don't know how many times I've heard that over the course of my 20-year career. These are not like, this is serious shit. And every time these train derailments happen, again, supply chain issues are happening. Are they unhappy about that? Well, some people are, but it's certainly insurance companies end up getting their stuff greased. Premiums go up. All kinds of things happen. People need to open their eyes. We're not the enemy here. Corporate greed is what's going to destroy this country. Let the rich succeed, while what used to be the middle class suffers. We worked day and night through the whole pandemic, and we got nothing. All we got was get your ass to work. We don't have time for sniffles. Suck it up and get to it. Someone would come into work and spread COVID, so instead of one guy being off, there were 5 or 6 or sometimes more. But the workload never changes.
Yeah.
More with less is the way we work now. I think we've all had enough.
Yep.
The unions don't want to back us. They're worried about politics. Enough is enough. Give us what we deserve, with or without the union. These railroads can get shut down, and we can all just walk off for the day or so. What are they going to do? Fire and arrest 135,000 of us all at once? We'd like to see them try. No, you would not. Honestly, I think that's emotion. They think there will be a crisis if we strike. Wait till everyone walks out and this country will be really screwed. Sign hundreds of thousands of rail employees.
Yep.
I'm with him, man.
Spit it out.
I think they would arrest 135,000 rail employees and force them to go to work. I really do.
Sure.
That's my worry. They think that these, if 135,000 people decided not to go to work simultaneously, I think they would send the cops after them. I really do. Tell them go to work.
They did this. They're called Pinkerton police. Like that's yes.
Mm-hmm.
We dealt with this before. I mean, stories of strapping Gatling guns to the back of stuff, and
So, like we talked about, again, we've heard from the perspective of the rail workers, and I thought that was most important to start by hearing from them directly. What do they feel like doing? Mm-hmm. How are they feeling about this? Now, it's not over. While Biden runs around touting the rail deal, workers have yet to vote, and many remain skeptical. So again, now this is CommonDreams, and again, this is in these times, picked up by CommonDreams. National rail strike could still be on the table if the rank and file workers reject the tentative agreement announced by the White House. So, Biden took a victory lap on Thursday. We know after his admin helped broker a deal to stave off what would have been the first national freight railroad strike in 30 years. But the potential crisis isn't over until rank and file rail workers vote on whether to approve the agreement, which could take weeks. Which we know the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen said, until railroad workers in the coming days can digest this and have their questions answered, there's no consensus able to build on whether this is a good deal, bad, or ugly. Okay, so that's the Teamsters guys. The tentative agreement reached early Thursday covers 60,000 workers with the BLET and sheet metal, air, rail, and transportation workers. What are the Smart TD? 2 of 12 rail unions that have been in contract negotiations with the major freight rail carriers for nearly 3 years. While all the other unions had already reached tentative deals, the BLET and Smart TD were the last holdouts. So now they've got that done. Okay. And so the president, Dennis Pierce, said that in accordance with the union's internal processes, the tentative agreement will first be reviewed by the union's general chairman, who will finalize the document before it's sent out to the membership for ratification via mail. And again, we now know that these guys are all due to get extra bonuses and extra raises if they can get this over the hump. So now they have all the incentive in the world to get this done. So, quote, this is probably going to take 3 to 4 weeks to get full details into members' hands. Not a delay tactic, it's just the way the process works. Everyone needs to remain calm because they will have their day to exercise their democratic rights on whether they want this to be their contract or not. Yeah, but the question is how prepared are they going to be when it comes to striking? And how prepared is management and the country going to be? And will it still have the same effect as if they had gone on strike last Friday? At the center of the labor dispute is the draconian attendance policies, which again don't allow workers to take sick leave and force them to be on call 24/7. In recent decades, major Class 1 rail carriers like Burlington Northern Santa Fe, Union Pacific, Norfolk Southern, and CSX have all implemented precision scheduled railroading, a kind of lean production, just-in-time model designed to maximize shareholder profits by slashing expenses. Because of PSR cost-cutting, over the past 6 years, the major Class 1 railroads like BNSF and those guys have slashed their collective workforce by 29%, leaving the industry woefully understaffed and putting extra strain on workers already accustomed to long, irregular hours. Wow, where have we heard this before? It sounds like we were just hearing this. Right? So here's an engineer who's saying we used to work much more flexible attendance policies. We could self-select when we needed time off for ourselves and families within reason before these carriers embraced PSR and started clamping down on these attendance policies. Again, we heard this at the Nabisco plant. We heard this at the Frito-Lay plant. 84-hour work weeks. While PSR has harmed workers, shippers, and consumers, it has led to the rail carriers recording record profits, with shareholders raking in $183 billion in buybacks and dividends since 2010. Since 2020, 2 coalitions of 12 unions, dubbed the United Rail Unions, have been in negotiations with the major railroad companies, represented by the National Carriers Conference Committee, right? I mean, this is, again, this is nothing new, but alongside sick leave and holidays, other key issues at the negotiating table have included wages, healthcare, and staffing, with the rail carriers demanding that freight train crews be reduced from 2 workers to just 1. They want to cut even more, these sons of bitches. They're not making enough money. $100 billion is not enough money. In an early effort to avert a strike, this July, Biden appointed a presidential emergency board. This is brutal. Watch this one. Consisting of 3 labor law experts for the purpose of determining and examining the dispute and proposing a fair settlement. Now, remember what these guys have been going through, right? After a month-long investigation, the PEB issued its report on August 16th while recommending a headline-grabbing 24% compounded wage increase within the next 18 months. The emergency board called on the unions to withdraw their demands for paid sick leave and added holidays, while also refusing to make recommendations on train crew size. Wait a minute. So at least you can, which means that they're woefully underpaid a lot more than the 24%. The 24% was just a pittance. Yeah. Just to say, look, man, we know you guys have been underpaid probably by 100%. Well, we'll say 24%. And you're not getting your sick pay. Fuck you. These guys are garbage. Thanks, Joe Biden. Let's go, Brandon. All right. The next day, the rail carriers declared that they were prepared to meet with the rail unions and reach agreements based on the PEB report without delay. I wonder if people who worked for Berkshire Hathaway are actually in the Biden White House. But some rank-and-file railroad workers took to social media to express their disgust at the emergency board's recommendations, angry that they didn't resolve central issues around leave and attendance. In a survey of over 3,000 rail workers from multiple unions conducted in late August by Railroad Workers United, an inter-union cross-craft solidarity caucus of rank-and-file railroaders, whopping 93% of respondents said they would vote to reject the PEB recommendations if they were offered as a tentative contract agreement. One phase from the PEB's report particularly stood out to many workers, offering a clear picture of what their employees think of them. Carriers maintain that capital investment and risk are the reasons for their profits, not any contributions by labor. Workers mean nothing to them. It really shows how out of touch rail carriers are to say that out loud. We as workers are fighting for human dignity at this point, just to be recognized as part of the reason that these carriers are extremely profitable. Gross. Yeah, seriously, Lisa.
Yep.
Okay, so in the weeks after the PEB report, most of the unions reached tentative agreements with the railroads based on the emergency board's recommendations. Garbage! They set the goalposts! So far, at least 2 unions have ratified their agreements, the TCU and the Brotherhood of Railway Carmen, the BCR, or the BRC. But members of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, District 19, voted to reject their tentative deal, delaying a possible strike by that particular union till September 29th. Others are still in the process of voting. Right? So, again, entering the week with a potential strike on the horizon on September 16th, only Smart TD and the BLET, the 2 largest rail unions, still did not have tentative agreements. In an apparent attempt to ratchet up the pressure, the rail carriers announced embargoes of fertilizer, ammonia, and other chemical products crucial to agriculture, while Amtrak began canceling long-distance passenger service. Right. So again, what the union heads are saying that the railroads are using shippers, consumers, and the supply chain of our nation as pawns in an effort to get our unions to cave into their contract demands, knowing that our members would never accept them. Our unions will not cave into these scare tactics. Congress must not cave into what can only be described as corporate terrorism. It's extortion. On Wednesday, citing the economic disruption that a rail strike would cause, Senate Republicans attempted to end the negotiations by forcing the PEB's recommendations onto the unions, a move that was blocked by Bernie. Now, Bernie got to step up and be the hero for a day. Bernie got to be the hero. Why? Because he got to say no to Republicans. So he got permission from Joe Biden to be the hero. All right? The CEOs in the freight rail industry need to understand that they cannot have it all. They cannot have it all. The rail industry must agree to a contract that is fair and is just. And if they are not prepared to do just that, it is time for Congress to stand on the side of workers for a change. Yeah, right. You gaslighting motherfucker. If a railroad strike is going to devastate the economy... Oh, no, this is somebody else. If a railroad strike is going to devastate the economy, then why doesn't the government clip the wings of these Fortune 500 companies that are pushing us to these kinds of limits? That question is never asked. Why? Because they're the donors. Early Thursday morning, after a marathon bargaining session in D.C., convened by Marty Walsh, who's Labor Secretary, and included Biden's personal involvement, the unions and rail carriers reached a tentative deal that goes above the PEB's recommendations by reportedly allowing workers to take voluntarily assigned days off and one additional paid personal day per year. Oh yeah, you're on call 24/7. You want that job? I don't. In a joint statement, Ferguson and Pierce explained that for the first time ever, the agreement provides our members with the ability to take time away from work. They're selling this as a good thing to attend to routine and preventive medical care, as well as exemptions from attendance policies for hospitalizations and surgical procedures. How fucking benevolent. The deal also protects two-person crews.
They're saying that's your volunteer. So it's like they're saying we already give you this volunteer time. You can use that now for like medical procedures. Isn't that nice? It's like, what?
The deal also protects two-person crews for the indefinite future, according to the union presidents. But of course, we know with their vague language, what does that mean? What is indefinite?
Mm-hmm.
These rail workers will get better pay, improved working conditions. Oh, goodness. Gaslighting Joe. All right. All hard earned. Yes, It is hard earned, but they're not getting paid nearly enough. I thank the unions and rail companies for negotiating in good faith. Yeah, not for making you look bad in election year, you fucking clown. And reaching a tentative agreement that will keep our critical rail system working and avoid a disruption of our economy and the entire world turning against Joe Biden.
Gives a shit.
Right. And blaming Joe Biden because they couldn't get that shit down.
Yep.
All right. It's not over. Again, the tentative agreement must now go out to the union membership for review and approval, which could take several weeks. Now it's up to the rank and file union members to evaluate this deal and determine whether it works for them. I will respect and support whatever decision they make. They're going to be forced into signing this thing, you fucking clown. Because their union leaders have a huge raise at stake to get it signed. They're going to force these guys to do it. They will threaten you, they will gaslight you, they will lie to you, and they will get you to agree to this. Without the precise contract language in front of them, railroad workers have many questions about the details of the tentative agreement, including exactly how many assigned days off will work. Some have already suggested on social media that they'll vote to reject the deal. I hope so. Okay? All these guys are saying that they're skeptical because they've been lied to so much by politicians, union leaders, and other powers that be. But BLET President Pierce stressed that union leadership has been hard at work communicating with the members about negotiations throughout the bargaining process and will continue to do so. Sure, you gaslighting son of a bitch. If they want to vote no, they can vote no. If they want to vote yes, they can vote yes. That really sounds like you care. We're not trying to impose anything. Yep. Yeah, no, you're not. Yes, you are, you clowns. We're trying to give them a chance to decide their future. Yes, but you're not giving them all the facts, and you're completely not negotiating in good faith and on their behalf. But they can't do that based on an emotional decision. See that? He's already gaslighting them, these sons of bitches.
Yep.
If the tentative agreement's rejected, the railroads may again be headed for a national strike or lockout later this year unless Congress imposes the agreement. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to. We're following the law. We're going to be communicating with the members. They didn't give up their right to strike. If the majority votes no, we'll be right back in about 8 weeks' time to where we sat yesterday. The problem is that in 8 weeks' time, the election's already over. They all know it. Even if we accept this agreement, this made me madder than anything else. This guy already is agreeing, and he's settling, and he's already basically conceding to the fact that they're going to give this up. Even if we accept this agreement, it's not over. Okay, you're basically saying that they're accepting this agreement. We're still going to be fighting for basic human dignity and to preserve our freight rail system and to make sure it functions safely. So damn upsetting. I got to tell you, you can hear it. I'm so fired up about this. I was in the steel industry in my early 20s, about 25 years ago. And I worked with long haul truckers. I worked with with over-the-road carriers. I worked with traffic managers, and I worked with ports, and I worked with stevedores, and I worked with all these guys, and especially rail workers, because we had to transport all of our coils and all of our bars by train. I mean, the hardest working people, dedicated, just salt of the earth, and just absolutely being screwed over. It's
Yep.
well, good. Chat's jumping. I really appreciate that. Lisa P, Bill Bradley, good to see you. Mad Mom and Non, how are you? We got some different people. I appreciate that. They're all friends from RBN chats and everybody else. I'm so glad to see everybody here tonight. Thank you so much. Again, we want to talk about what's going on with these rails. I don't think enough platforms and enough, enough channels are talking about it, and it's really, again, we have to be focused on workers, and I know we are, and INN certainly is. Gear Brown, thank you for being here. Karen, how are you? Good to see you. She's got it. Zephyr Teachout, really call Biden corrupt, and Bernie dumped her. Yes, that is exactly what happened. I want to put that one up there.
Yep.
I gotta find it. There you go. Here's Karen's comment.
She's got a weird fucking name.
Yes, Karen.
Couldn't spell it.
Smetanovska. See, I've got it.
No,
all
not
right.
that. I'm talking. I'm being Bernie.
Oh, Zephyr Teachout. She's got a weird name.
She's got a weird name.
She certainly does. Yep. So again, it's and there's more to this. Okay, I've got one more part to the story. All right, and the third part is the most infuriating of all. While fighting workers, railroads made over $10 billion in stock buybacks. And again, this is out of CommonDreams. Our research shows just how far railroad execs will go to funnel record profits. And again, that'll be in the article. At the same time, they fought to deny sick days and other benefits to workers in the freight industry. Rail carrier executives have been rewarding shareholders with billions of dollars in stock buybacks and dividend bumps. What does that do? According to railroad operators, bad for workers, good for investors. A collection of data compiled by the Groundwork Collaborative and shared with CommonDreams on Monday, a handful of major rail companies reported more than $10 billion in buybacks and dividends over the first 6 months of 2022. Meanwhile, workers who try to visit a doctor amid a global pandemic continue to be disciplined, leading to higher staff turnover and soaring injury rates. Our research shows just how far railroad executives will go, like I said, to funnel record profits to their shareholders, even if that means stagnant wages, inhumane attendance policies, and throwing our supply chain into further turmoil. Groundwork's analysis, which is based on recent corporate earnings calls from Union Pacific, CSX, Canadian National Railway, and Norfolk Southern, sheds new light on the dynamics underlying rail workers' ongoing fight for more safety and dignity in the workplace. When it comes to shoveling more money to investors, Groundwork found that Union Pacific is leading the pack in 2022. Rather than using billions of dollars in revenue to improve pay and job conditions, Union Pacific gave $5 billion to shareholders through buybacks and dividends in the first 6 months of this year alone. Would they take $1 billion of that and pay some of their employees a little bit more and give a day off? I think they could.
No.
Right? Other giants in the industry, they're not far behind. CSX, for instance, funneled nearly $3 billion in buybacks and dividends to investors from January through June, while Canadian National Railway reported $2.3 billion in stock buybacks during the same period. Now, what stock buybacks do is they take available stock off the market, which artificially inflates the price of the available remaining shares in the market. I'm sure it's going to tell you that. Although exact figures weren't disclosed, Norfolk Southern's chief financial officer, Mark George, said on a July call that shareholder distributions are up, and you'll observe here that the 19% higher dividend payments through 6 months on top of continued strong share repurchase activity. How could they do that? Well, they're doing that on the backs of their workers. Railroads have been enjoying record profits after decades of deregulation, consolidation, and just-in-time practices known as, like we said, PRS, transformed the industry into what Sarah Miller, executive director of the American Economic Liberties Project, describes as another monopolized cash cow for Wall Street, which we've seen. right? The safety of workers and communities, meanwhile, has been put in jeopardy by executives who fired workers and increased hours. And here's a David Dane quote from American Prospect, right? And he's got a good article about how America's supply chains get railroaded. Right. For their part, railroad executives have testified that the primary reason for their service failures for this year is a lack of workers. Yes, because they fired them all to boost their revenues. They gave out packages. Again, new analysis points out Union Pacific Chief Executive Officer Lance Fritz told investors on a July call, the company had cut staff by a third since 2018 and said, we've got to do some other unique and creative things with our labor unions in order to make our crews more available and more productive. Yeah, creative, like squeezing the fuck out of them and putting them on 24/7 freaking call. I mean, these guys are not ambulance drivers. They're not firefighters. They should not have to be on call 24/7. There's no reason for this when the company's making hundreds of billions of dollars in profit a year. I mean,
who could pay multiple crews?
I mean, it's $10 billion they made in buybacks, but what's their profit been? That's just the stock. That's just the money they use from their profits to buy back and take the stock off the market. He also said Union Pacific is prepared to make further staffing cuts during an economic downturn, asserting that conductorless trains would be better for the conductor's quality of life. So now you're just completely automating the whole thing. Yeah.
Automating it. They're like, all right, fuck it. The unions are coming, boys. We got to get robots.
That's right.
Robo trains.
Robo trains, robo truckers, robo everything. Eliminate every.
You know what? You know why, right?
Because we're headed for Wall-E, because they don't talk back.
Well, no, because it's
all about geometry.
Clearly.
But
clearly.
like Fritz
geometry.
Like Fritz at Union Pacific, CSX CEO James Foote told investors on a July call that workers at his company are not happy that they didn't get a raise for 2.5 years and expressed hope that the PEB puts out a recommendation that's a win-win for both sides. Yeah, right, sure. How much money did you guys put in the coffers of Biden administration? CSX acknowledged that its injury rate. Yep, thank you, Misty. Shout out to Misty. We'll talk about her event on October 8th later on. CSX acknowledged that its injury rate in the second quarter increased modestly from the near record levels in the first quarter, only for him to blame the company's staffing challenges on what he described as pandemic-induced changes to employees' work and lifestyle preferences. Yeah, it can't be the fact that you're, again, offering 24/7 call with no sick days. Who the hell wants to go work for that? It's been somewhat of a surprise to all of us, the number of people that have dropped out after, again, going through all the classroom training, all the on-the-job training, and then working a few months and deciding they don't like railroading as a profession. Just moments after stagnant wages and unsafe conditions were discussed. He's blaming the workers. They go through all of this and then they decide, how about the fact that they get their paycheck and then they realize that they're fucked and they talk to everyone who's been there 20 years. It's like, dude, run. Mark George, CFO of Norfolk Southern, meanwhile, also attributed high attrition rates to the so-called lifestyle challenge occurring in a very unique labor market where everyone's looking for talent. Again, how the hell do you have a family when you're on call 24/7 working for a railroad? He did go on to at least acknowledge, however, that despite the very rich and attractive pay structure that the railroads offer, sometimes people would rather work in a more predictable schedule in warehousing or in-home construction where they can be nearby and where they can live and not stay in hotels and just not also be on call. Yes.
Yeah.
Norfolk Southern's chief operating COO, Cindy Sanborn, said that companies looking into sign-on and attendance bonuses, retirement deferral, and referral incentives. They're bringing back the old retirements and they're making them wait longer to boost hiring and retention. Yeah. But she didn't say anything about workers' fundamental demands for sick days, paid leave, and other basic benefits revolving around better quality of life. What a surprise. Again, here's the extreme case. You've got Aaron Hiles. He died from a heart attack in June, weeks after postponing a doctor's appointment so that he wouldn't be penalized for time off at his job. This is just one of the tragedies at the heart of, at least for the now, averted rail strike. I mean, just all day. Last week, labor lawyer Jenny Hunter and Perry Gerstein, right? Again, Harvard Law School's Labor and Work-Life Program argued in Slate that railroad companies nearly inflicted an economic catastrophe on the U.S. because they chose profit maximization over humane workplace policies. Yep. Right? Nationwide strike or lockout was at least temporarily averted last Thursday when the Biden White House announced a tentative agreement. We know, as a pair of unions representing of tens of thousands has stressed, however, the proposed deal must still be approved by the rank and file members. Shout out to them. Had it not been for Bernie Sanders' intervention, again, they would have been forced, which many workers found intolerable because it excluded sick leave, right? Among other shortcomings, right? Yep. So, it's just, I feel for these workers. I mean, I don't know what the answer is because it's all corruption and greed at the top. The same people that have to regulate and police these guys and tell them what they need to do, they're the ones that end up getting paid off to not and look the other way and to screw over the workers. And meanwhile, all these people get completely fucked over and they're dropping out of the workforce. And yeah, this further compounds the supply chain. It further compounds to people getting kicked out of their homes because they can't afford their homes because they don't want to work for a railroad where they have to be on call 24/7. Man, I know it's heavy. And I know that one took a while, but I think it's really important to get into what the Biden administration is doing to squeeze this, what the unions are doing to try to help the workers, but at the same time, what union leadership is doing to screw over the workers and what their motivation is to do so, what they're gaining, what they have to gain. So I think it's really important info. I haven't heard anybody else talking about the double pay from the unions besides